This is On the Pony Express after Stang's postgame show.
Tune in after each SMU game for reaction, exclusive interviews, and more.
Check out all our SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com.
A part of the On3 network.
Now, your host, Billy Embody.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the After Stang Show. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening with us after SMU beat Rice on the road Saturday night, 36-31. A really interesting game for the Mustangs overall as they improved to 7-2 on the season, 5-0 in AAC play. That's the first time that SMU has started 5-0 in conference play since starting 7-0 in 1982 when the Mustangs finished up 7-0-1 in the Southwest Conference. SMU on a 6-game winning streak in the AAC, including 5 games this season. And this is a game that we have a lot to unpack with. Got a little bit of what Rhett Lashley said after the game on the post-game show with Rich Phillips, which we'll try to share with you guys here. I'll play it through my computer, and then hopefully it gets picked up by my mic pretty well. I'll kind of turn it for you guys. But you had an SMU team that opens up and gets a punt blocked for a touchdown that gives Rice an early 7-0 lead. And you're sitting there and you're just shocked kind of by that in a way, as SMU, hadn't really gotten burned as badly as that on special teams, but it was kind of a precursor of what was going to come all night as SMU did struggle on special teams. Colin Rogers recovered from an early miss to hit 3 of 4 field goals, including that clutch 51-yard kick in the final minutes of the game. But you had a long kickoff return that was aided by a penalty on the tackle by Colin Rogers that set Rice up well. The Ryan Bachevsky just had 1 punt for 39 yards. They went for it on 4th down and did a fake punt on the opening drive. And you sit back and you look at this game and you try to unpack how, and we looked at it after the first quarter, SMU had outgained Rice 204 yards to -1 total yards, and was up 14-7, which was fine, all things considered, with the block punt, going for it on 4th down with the fake punt, which I didn't like. Obviously, it was a very kind of simple punt, a fake punt with the pass from Bachevsky that would have been short anyway. Tyler Veen was covered up pretty well. Just kind of a weird special teams play there. And then they end up getting 1 blocked later on that leads to, obviously, it being returned for a touchdown to give Rice that 7-0 lead. I think when you look at this game overall, you've got to unpack it in certain ways. One, let's start with this. I felt like SMU was going to come in and be able to move the ball at will, which kind of they were able to. They finished averaging 6 yards a play. Before Preston Stone got hurt, they were 6.3 yards per play. That third quarter, SMU averaged 8 yards per play as they ended up racking up 140 total yards. They had 9 points. They, of course, had the missed extra point with the muffed, handling on the snap. And they looked like a team that was going to be able to hold off Rice with a backup quarterback in Chase Jenkins once JT Daniels got, knocked out of the game. But it was just weird. I mean, and you need games like this in a way to grow through adversity. And you wish it came in a different way, like SMU played well and all facets, and it was just a tough, hard-fought game. But you have special teams, things that you absolutely need to clean up. You have a defense that ended up giving up 290 yards overall, with Rice racking up 167 in the second half. They had 123 total yards in the first half. And that was with the backup quarterback in the second half. And sometimes we'll talk about the defense, but I do think sometimes when the starting quarterback gets knocked out and you have somebody who's really unproven, raw, being coached in the moment, you can get kind of not lucky, but some things go your way. And there are some things that SMU's defense did uncharacteristically tonight. I thought their tackling wasn't as good, particularly in the second half. There, Rice was able to break some big plays. But overall, I think SMU just had a bunch of things go against them. And even right before Preston Stone got knocked out of the game, he hit a great little seam pass to Jalen Knight and picked up a huge gain. They go right back to Jalen Knight with a run. He fumbles. SMU's defense held, obviously, and Rice didn't score off of that turnover. It was kind of like the OU game. Well, they're well on their way to moving inside Rice territory and getting things going in the right direction. And then you have that kind of game-changing play happen where Preston Stone goes down, and then you also have the fumble right before that. And those things kind of obviously hurt SMU. And so I'm going to try to unpack this game as best I can. We have a ton of questions. We don't have too much of post-game stuff in from Rice just yet. So we'll kind of jump in here with the questions right away, and I'm going to try to get the questions done. And so if you see me stop answering questions, if you get them in kind of after we're done recording or late in the podcast, sorry about that. But probation coach asks, and it's a good first question, what's the biggest issue you saw tonight? The block punt is unacceptable, but outside of special teams blunders, what disappointed me the most? The biggest issue is special teams coming off this game. And the punt unit has had issues in protection at times this year where coaching staffs have been able to identify and execute ways to make SMU's punt team uncomfortable. Now, if you're punting that much, you obviously have offensive issues too. So that's not to be forgotten in the grand scheme of things, but you have to be clean on special teams. I thought Colin Rogers, when he missed that first kick, I was like, man, he was rolling and getting some confidence. He had hit some long field goals, and that was tough, but he rebounded. And that was important for me to see. So I do want that to, I think, not be forgotten in the grand scheme of special teams blunders, which there was kick coverage issues. There was the extra point issue, punt team issue. And you're just kind of scared with that unit overall. They had been playing better, but this was a step back for them. So I do think that's an issue. What disappointed me, though, the most is something that I didn't think we'd see, and that was in the second half. Yes, I thought Rice would maybe be able to find some little things with Chase Jenkins because he's so mobile, and maybe they'd extend some plays and find things that break down and take advantage of them. But I thought the tackling by SMU just wasn't there, and maybe it was one of those games where, man, you're getting flagged left and right for this and that. Maybe it kind of messes with you mentally. But there were way too many bunnies, as you would call them in basketball, layups that this defense usually makes in terms of tackling in space. And Rice was able to capitalize on that a little bit. I thought the drive at the end of the first half was a prime example. Rice really kind of pushed things sideline to sideline, did some misdirection with some of their plays in terms of how they kind of teed up, like, with motion and things like that. I thought that was something that they could maybe use and exploit in the second half if SMU didn't correct. But overall, I think the things I'm most disappointed with is the tackling. I thought early on the pass protection was not that great. And then I think they settled in. Preston Stone was not sacked that I saw. He wasn't sacked on the night, so that's good. SMU did rush for they rushed for 223 total yards. Preston Stone had 81 of those yards. He had that long of 34, which was big. But you had LJ Johnson averaging 4.9 yards per carry, Jalen Knight averaging 5 yards a carry. And it wasn't going bad. It was just they were a hair away from hitting some bigger runs more consistently. LJ Johnson had a 19-yard run. Jalen Knight had a 13-yard run. And he obviously had the pass down the middle that he caught. that was a big play. But you didn't see them hit the big one. And I thought they were really close tonight in the run game. So I think that was maybe a little disappointing, just that they didn't hit the big one. But I don't think the run game was a true issue tonight. The issue is that Jalen Knighton fumbled. And as you get into these games down the stretch where they are playing better teams, you're going to play a North Texas team that has played some teams tough on Friday. You're going to play Memphis on the road, and then obviously Navy is going to always play as hard as they physically can. You're going to have to take care of the football and make sure you step up and do things the right way. And so that's a concern for me overall, is the fumble. So I would say tackling was disappointing on defense. I'm sure Scott Simons would tell you the same. I think the special teams obviously was. Fumble was disappointing. I thought the wide receivers were off to a really good start, and then just kind of were, for the most part, kind of bottled up in a way. They didn't have too many huge plays in the game. I thought a big piece was, Jordan Hudson continues to get more and more opportunities. I think that they just, especially if Jordan Curley is out for a minute, they have to really lean on him a little bit more. But I do think we're seeing that receiving core kind of whittle down in terms of the guys that are getting opportunities week in, week out, which I think is a good thing overall, actually. So Abe Zotnar asks, can this team beat Memphis on the road? Yeah, they can. Absolutely. Memphis is not perfect. We've seen Memphis have struggles with some teams that they shouldn't. We've seen them play tough against some teams that you're like, okay, Memphis still has it in them to be a good team, but you've got to play well, and you can't do the things that SMU did tonight against Memphis and expect to win. You can still win, and I think this team has shown that they can battle through some things and still get the win. We saw East Carolina play Tulane. I think it was Tulane tonight, 13-10 game. Really hard. So, I mean, that win kind of looks better in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, SMU can absolutely beat Memphis if they play the way they're capable of, and especially if they play the way they're capable of defensively. And I didn't think that they, I didn't think that they didn't play to that level tonight. Smarter Budweiser asks, chances Preston Stone isn't available for North Texas. Rhett Lashley did say on the postgame radio show that I think he's going to be fine. Obviously, he was in the protocol, which is why he wasn't able to go back into the game when he was injured early in the fourth quarter. But that's what Rhett Lashley said right after the game, is that he was able to. He didn't seem too concerned long term. Why can't we kick off through the end zone? That is another good question from That's Great Ralph. Look, I mean, it's just got to keep getting stronger as a kicker. I don't know why you can't. They do it from time to time. You just got to hit the ball. I mean, some teams now are trying to do the sky kick where it gets, caught at the 1 or 2, but I don't think SMU's trying to do that. I think they're trying to kick it out of the back of the end zone whenever they can. I didn't think outside of the one long return for 44, they didn't play bad on coverage. I mean, yes, that is a bad return, but it wasn't like they weren't covering. They only covered 3 kicks. So I'm trying to find his kickoffs through the end zone, but for some reason I can't find it. I know they had a couple tonight. Let's see. Smarter Budweiser. Who else got hurt? Jordan Curley did. Logan Parr. Kamar Wheaton might have. Isaiah Wakobe obviously came back and made a huge play, the interception to cap the game. So I don't know who else really got nicked up for SMU. FW Silver asked, why won't we give Levine and Wheaton more carries? Well, I mean, Kamar, it seems like got hurt. I missed where he got hurt, but he got into the game and got a carry and got a yard. So, I mean, Kamar's hit or miss. I mean, but he's also your 4th running back when he's healthy. 3rd or 4th. I guess he's your 3rd when healthy. So if you're giving LJ Johnson and Jalen Knighton 26 carries on 45 total rushes, which includes Preston Stone's 8, those are your two starters. They've, for the most part, earned it, I would say, this year in terms of their actual production. And they'd like to give Kamar more when he's healthy, but he ended up not being healthy. Tyler Levine, I think in short yardage, I think he's what you want. I mean, I'm totally with you on that. I don't know what the deal is there. I know some of it would be subbing. That would be one piece, I would imagine. But good things happen. He had a touchdown tonight, and scored on that one, which was great to see for him. But yeah, I mean, there's only so many carries, but it's pretty clear they want to ride LJ Johnson, especially. And then if Jalen Knighton can hold on to the football, they'll ride him. He also asked, how do I manage the LSU and SMU boards when both games are on at the same time? Pretty much watching SMU the whole time. Tonight, I did have LSU Bama on my computer screen, kind of watching it off to the side, but I do a lot more recruiting stuff on the LSU beat right now. So just kind of doing help around Shea Dixon and Matthew Bruni, who cover the team day in, day out for us on there. So SMU gets most of my attention on the games. Conrad Pike, why was RJ Maryland non-existent? He had a touchdown call back on the phantom holding call to open the game. He had another target, and that was about it. It just was one of those games. The tight end usage sometimes for SMU comes and it goes. It's hard for me to I didn't feel like I felt like there were moments where the passing game was clicking, and there were others when it was not. And it's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde deal. And they had some opportunities to make some plays. Preston Stone had some underthrown balls. Two plays before, touchdown to Jordan Hudson. He underthrew Jordan Curley. He had another underthrow down the field that I'm trying to remember when it was, but he's missing some throws too. And the receivers I think the big thing with SMU's receivers they're struggling to make competitive plays on the ball. And, last year SMU was so lucky with Rashee Rice that he made those all the time. And it took the pressure off the other guys when they got opportunities to make those plays. It took the pressure off of them. And this year they're not getting them from many guys, save from Jordan Hudson, I would say. So in terms of RJ, though, I mean, it seems like it was one of those games for him. The Cadillac asks, I don't understand how the defense was able to maul Chase Jenkins at the start of the second half, only to get outmaneuvered after 2 drives. I get the backups are always a challenge because you don't run too much film on them, but that seemed egregious. Again, it kind of goes back to it being a weird game. Rice had 6 total drives, I think, in the second half. Yeah, 6 total drives. SMU went punt on their first 2 drives of the second half. Then they allowed the touchdown where I think they gave up a big play on that one. If I'm remembering right, I'll try to pull it up here. But it was just one of those things where, let's see. Yeah, they gave up the big reception to Ross and McNeil, and then they hit another big play. So, I mean, you give Rice 2 big explosive plays, and then you're in the red zone. I mean, that's kind of how. And Rice was just able to hit some of those tonight. I think they finished with 7 big plays on the night. Let's see. Yeah, 7 big plays on the night. All of them but one came. 3 of the 4 passing plays came in the second half. And then 2 of the 3 big running plays came in the second half in the fourth quarter. One was a 14-yard rush. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, when you give up explosive plays, that's what happens. And we haven't seen many games where SMU has given up explosive plays of 31, 37, 29, 20, 57. That's not been SMU's defense this year. So maybe an anomaly. I think with Jenkins just kind of catching a little fire. I mean, that's kind of it. They also had a short field on another one with the kick coverage unit. So there's that aspect of it too. They started one drive. They started one drive at the see. Sorry, going down the list here. They started one drive at the 45. They ended up that was coming off the fumble. So I mean, it's just for the I guess the long kick return was at the end of the first half. What am I talking about? But yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, it's hard to assess games defensively when you went in thinking, okay, here's JT Daniels coming in. He can throw it all over the field, quick passing game. They get the ball out quick, all those things. Very different from what SMU had faced all year. And then they end up having to face his backup quarterback that they probably had. There's no way they really had a game plan for. And then their tackling was poor. So you combine that, and that's just kind of how you get outmaneuvered. I just thought the tackling was, it left a lot to be desired. So that's how you get outmaneuvered, I guess. Whiskey Pony, we covered this on the running game. I mean, Rooster and LJ were averaging 5 yards a carry. So yes, Tyler Levine showed last year that he can do it, and I still think he deserves more carries. But I mean, this offense was averaging 6.3 yards per play until Kevin Jennings took over and led that drive when they got the ball with 7:44 to go. So, I mean, it didn't seem that bad to me. Yes, Siri trying to mess with my post game here, but I mean, I think in short yardage, that's where I'd like to see Tyler Levine more. But in terms of your normal run game, I mean, I thought the run game was good tonight. Keyshawn Smith, how much longer is he going to be running out there? Keyshawn's been playing well until tonight. So, I mean, it's a step back game for him. What happened to the D? Covered that. They didn't tackle well tonight like they usually do. Special teams covered that. You've got to fix your punt block unit or your punting unit protection overall. I don't know what has to happen. New players. They put a bunch of new players out on special teams after some of the early blunders this season. So they need to go back to the drawing board and fix it. Abe, with a follow-up, what are you drinking to cope with the stress? I had a pony pills right before this podcast. It was lovely. SF to Hilltop. Hudson should be starting. Jordan Hudson, yes, absolutely. LJ Johnson should get 15 to 20 carries a game with Levine and Kamar backing him up. I mean, Kamar's not available, so that's hard to do. Consistently available. Jalen was having a good game and then fumbles. So, I mean, that I don't know when that was his first fumble. I guess he had the one against Oklahoma, and then I think he had one against Charlotte. But we covered special teams. Let's see. What else? SMU alum 11. How bad were the injuries? We don't know yet. It seems like Preston's going to be fine from what Rhett Lashley said. Do we know how SMU's offense isn't a juggernaut and it's going to be and it's going to need to be better here on out? Okay. Yeah. I felt like this offense, if you go through the actual stats and you kind of look through how things were trending through the third quarter, SMU had 422 total yards of offense. They were averaging 5.7 yards per carry on the ground. They had 224 passing yards, along with 5 penalties, 51 yards. You take a touchdown off the board to start the game on the phantom hold, and they had another hold that hurt their drive at some point too. And then they were 6 of 13 on third downs through the third quarter. Not bad. 6.7 yards per play, winning time of possession. They had a missed field goal at that point, and they had the Jalen Knighton. Preston Stone had the fumble. He recovered it. I mean, that if you would have told me that through 3 quarters, it's pretty darn good. And then Preston goes out with a little over 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So I thought Rice. I mean, I think I predicted. I'd have to look. I had I didn't have Rice obviously keeping it this close. I had SMU covering. I had SMU scoring 42 points and Rice scoring 17. Rice had a touchdown given to them off of special teams, and then another one really off the bad kick coverage group at the end of the first half. And I mean, they're one touchdown shy of being right on point to what I predicted. So I mean, again, I didn't think they really played like that bad. They just still were met with some of the inconsistencies that they've faced all year. Kurt, SMU 06. Oh, and then updated forecast for the remaining games. I still have SMU winning out. I mean, this is a good team, and they didn't play their best tonight. And I mean, this is a game that on paper, if you can, and this is why they play the games, but if you can eliminate some of the mistakes that hurt themselves, that were inflicted upon themselves, you're looking at a cover, you're looking at a relatively smooth win. So this game doesn't change that. I think SMU is going to win out. Kurt, SMU 06, what happened to Bailey in the second half? Felt like he was open all night, but didn't get many targets. I agree. They maybe made an adjustment. I don't know. We'd have to hear from the coaches on that. But they SMU had they had the drive with Preston at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and he ends up going out. I think that was one of the drives that they had a holding. Let me try to look it up. No, they didn't. Okay, they just went 3 and out. But yeah, and then Kevin Jennings got in there, and I mean, he made some great plays, and they ate up about 5 minutes of game clock, and then Rice got the ball back, and the game was over. So, and SMU was able to score touchdown and a field goal in the third quarter. They had 3 drives, so 2 of their 3 drives they scored. They were on their way to scoring, and then the Jalen Knight fumble. I mean, things were going well in the second half in a weird way. Coucham asks, why is SMU so vulnerable to punt blocks, scheme, or talent? I think you've got to kind of lean towards a little bit more on scheme. I mean, they're just right up the middle or right off the edge, and it's just, I think it's got to be scheme. You also got to lean a little bit on execution of the players to figure it out and make the right protection calls and all of that. Abe asks, if SMU wins out and UTSA wins out, who hosts the championship game? I think SMU would host it. Just kind of guessing based on where UTSA is 6-3 overall. They have a loss to Houston. They have a loss to Army. They have a loss at Tennessee. So they'll have 3 losses. I don't think that would be enough, even if they beat Tulane, to jump SMU in terms of how that works out. Coucham asks, final authoritative answer. Are wide receivers open or not? If not, scheme or talent? I think they are open earlier in pass plays. And when things break down and they don't go well, defenses are able to cover them up enough for the most part. And that's when they become not open. I think a lot of whenever things don't go well in the passing game is rooted in Preston Stone. And he did this a couple times tonight. Drop back, retreated, and then you're playing backyard football, and it's kind of hard. I do think they have not lived up to the talent we thought. But we've seen SMU kind of improve their passing scheme overall throughout this year. I felt like, especially in league play, where we've seen more intermediates, we've seen more over the middle. I thought we saw more over the middle stuff tonight than we did throughout the season. So I think it's a little bit of kind of competitive situations not going SMU's way, and they've got to figure out which receivers can win those as well. So it's a bunch of different things. OC Mustangs asks, first couple series, SMU's defense made something bad happen to Rice's offense. 5 of the 6 downs, 2 sacks, a punt, and a pick. Yes, SMU had the special teams miscues, but Was there adjustment made by Rice to halt the defensive onslaught? I think they did a really nice job of using some really nice concepts to get some misdirection and hurt SMU's angles and kind of where their fits are in terms of some of those things. And that allowed them to make some plays in it, especially when JT Daniels was in there and they scored a couple touchdowns there in the second quarter. Couchum, what is the Rice recruiting situation? This coach has had like 5 years of garbage, so isn't genius scheming. Have they had success in recruiting or transfers? I think they have some transfers on their team for sure. Obviously, JT Daniels is one, but they have done a really nice job hiring coaches. They brought the program down to the studs, and they've just evaluated for the most part well. Do remember, I mean, they did get bowl eligible with 5 wins last year, and they have a chance to get bowl eligible this year, but it's not like they have sustained now years of bowl eligibility and things like that. They just play really hard. They're super well coached, organized, but they're not perfect. I mean, I think their defense kind of took tonight personal. Obviously, we saw it get pretty chippy and dirty, but yeah, I mean, they've done a good job down there with the recruiting situation, which is you got to be able to play school too at Rice and at a really high level to stick around there. So, let's see, 2 pages tonight. The board is popping. Seems like a bunch of people just talking now. So if you're on the Pony Express, join the conversation. Just $1 to join our message board. Last question, FW Silver, is there tension between Rice and SMU coaches? I don't think so. Maybe not more than any other in-state game. So just a super hard-fought, rough football game for SMU and Rice to kind of go after it. It's obviously the last game for a while with this game. So SMU wins the Mayor's Cup. They get to keep it for a long, long time now. So with that, I'll close with a couple of quick thoughts, and I'll go offense, defense, special teams. Actually, I won't go special teams. I think I covered that. You got to fix punt protection. Colin Rogers rebounded after his missed field goal. They've got to figure out if there was anything really, really wrong with that kick cover, and then go from there on that. So offensively, I felt like Preston played with a lot of confidence overall. I do think there were a couple of drops that some of his receivers would certainly like to have back. I do think there was a time there where he did get a little backyard football and it kind of hurt and things like that. I just thought it was one of those games offensively where when they went for it on 4th down with the fake punt, I didn't like that call. I think it kind of set up SMU a little weird in that sense. I'd rather just leave the offense out there. And maybe the game is shifted from a field position perspective if you change your mind on kind of how you do that and all that. So, SMU offensively, I didn't think they had a bad game. I thought pass protection was kind of rough early. I think they fixed it, and they were able to figure out how to keep Preston Stone fairly protected. Again, he didn't get sacked tonight. Run game, I thought, was pretty good overall. The fumble by Jalen Knighton hurt. They ran Preston Stone more, and they just didn't hit the big plays that were probably there on a couple opportunities because Rice defenders were able to make good tackles and trip up some SMU running backs. And it's kind of how it goes some days. But I do think we're seeing Jordan Hudson continue to emerge. And if he can be a little bit of a star down the stretch, that would be huge for this passing game. He just shows whenever they target him that good things kind of happen. So even the one that was whistled pretty quickly after he caught it on a screen that he was breaking and still kind of turning his feet and everything, man, I mean, that would have been a huge play in the game. So defensively, I think they just have to clean up their tackling. I felt like they were in the backfield a ton. They got 4 sacks on the night, 9 tackles for loss. They've got to just get back to playing sound, fundamental SMU football like they've done for much of the year, and they'll be okay. They were able to hold Rice to 4.4 yards per play in the first half. And they just had a couple moments where they just had lapses, and special teams didn't help them either on that last drive in the first half. So the game could have been very different with a couple of key plays going SMU's way or not happening or being prevented. The block punt, the opening touchdown to RJ Maryland. Who knows if Preston Stone keeps things rolling or whatever, if he's able to stay in the game. But kudos to Kevin Henry Jennings too, man. I mean, that guy just has ice in his veins, just leads a cool 12-play, 41-yard drive that chewed up 5 minutes. I mean, he just has that ability to make time just melt away in some of these games for SMU whenever he comes in. And hopefully Preston is able to play against North Texas on Friday night, 8:00 game in Ford Stadium. It'll be a fun one that we'll be there to cover as always. But he just has ice in his veins. I mean, he was so calm and collected on that third down where he dropped it off to LJ Johnson, made a great throw to Romello. He would have loved to have finished the touchdown drive, but you cook 5 minutes off the clock and then Colin Rogers makes a clutch field goal. That's guys stepping up when you need them the most. And so overall, SMU had some things go against them tonight that were certainly preventable. They need to fix some of the things, but Rice is a team that has played so many teams hard. They've also lost to UConn. They've had some games where, wow, that wasn't pretty, but they've also played some good teams hard. And they're, in particular, very tough at home. So, look, SMU, the good thing right now, in a way, is you have things to correct. You have teaching points to hone in on. It's a good little wake-up call for the guys. If you're not on point, you better be, because this league, it can get you if you're not focused, especially down the stretch. So hopefully it's just a little reminder for SMU as they get into the final 3 games of the regular season that you better play clean football, and teams will beat you if not. So we'll be back with another After Stang show late one Friday night against North Texas after SMU plays North Texas. So we'll have your coverage of that for you guys. But sorry we didn't get much Rhett Lashley tonight. It was kind of weird getting out of the Rice Stadium, but you can check it out at ontheponyexpress.com. We'll have Rhett Lashley's thoughts from the game and what he saw from his vantage point. We'll have your full coverage. If you haven't subscribed to ontheponyexpress.com, subscribe for just $1 for your first month. If you subscribe right now, that'll get you into the little early part of the transfer portal season. And trust me, it is the best time of year to be on an SMU message board. So with that, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the After Stang Show. Check out our friends at Shug's Bagels in Mockingbird Plaza. They're open right now for that late night meal. Order at shugsbagels.com off their after hours menu and tell them On the Pony Express sent you when you pick it up at the window. So have a good one, everyone. SMU moves on to 7-2 with a 36-31 win over Rice. We will catch you guys next week on the After Stang Show.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody.
Follow us on your socials on X at SMU_on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU.
And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.